Agree or disagree with the decision, it does not matter. We are all New York Jet fans, but the New York Jets have officially moved on from Aaron Rodgers. What's next for the Jets at the quarterback position in 2025? We'll break it down and much more all coming up here on a Wednesday evening edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by our guy Frankie V from U Stadium.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, February 12th, 2025. A lot to get into today, but before we do so, make sure you smash that like button. You are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate all your support. Don't forget about our membership raffle. Throw the ticker on down below. Some really exciting prizes we are giving away this month. Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, Bill Parcells signed photo, free item from the merch store, channel emoji. Be sure to get in on that if you haven't already. Any questions for Frankie and I, throw them in the chat. If you want to call into the show, click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Appreciate you all tuning in, but let's bring on our guest for today's show. You know him from U Stadium. He was on the Jake Asman show earlier today, regularly appears there, and he's also regularly featured on New York Post Sports' Gangs All Here podcast, their New York Jets podcast. First-time guest here on the program, Frankie Vittorini. Frankie V, how you doing, my man?
Connor, you're the young goat, man. You're doing your thing. You are unbelievable, honestly. You're going to be one of the best. You're an up-and-comer. You know more about football than most people. I think you definitely know more than me. So shout-outs to you. That intro was fire, and you're doing a great job, man. Keep it up, honestly.
Frankie, I appreciate you hopping on first time on the show. Hopefully not the last. I guess where I'm going to start is I know you were a big proponent of don't bring Rodgers back, and I was in that same boat too. We were talking before the show. Now, though, it leaves the Jets with a big decision upcoming. It's most likely going to be a bridge option for the 2025 season. Which route do you want to see the Jets going? Is it potentially giving the starting role to someone in-house, maybe a Tyrod Taylor? You see what you have in Jordan Travis. Is it exploring the free agency route, a Taylor Heineke perhaps, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton? One of those names, or are you comfortable drafting someone? I know you've been very vocal on Will Howard, maybe drafting Will Howard and putting him in the starting role right away. What route do you want to see the Jets go as they try to fill this quarterback position?
Well, Connor, hear me out on this, right? So I was 50-50 about the Rodgers thing.
Okay.
And as we sort of went through the process and looked at how this staff was coming together, specifically with our new OC and Tanner Angstrand, I didn't think Rodgers made any sense. Rodgers wants to run his system. He is going to take over play calling if it's not going perfectly or his way in his mind. I didn't want that to affect Tanner and his ability to put together a system, understand the system, have a system in place that people can, learn from, etc. He's new. He's young. And I think with Rodgers there, it could have affected that development. And as I started looking into it more and more, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the Rodgers stats and some of his deficiencies on the field. We don't even need to bring stuff from off the field. We can just talk strictly on the field. I thought it didn't make much sense to bring him back. So as it was going through as we were going through the offseason process and the new hires, I'm like, it's better just to move on. As to who should be the quarterback next year, listen, I was telling Jake before I was on his show, shout outs to him. Jake's one of the best in the game. Listen, Tyrod slotted to be the starter. I don't think he will be, though. I think the Jets are going to look at I really don't. I think they're going to sign a free agent quarterback. I think they're going to look at the draft to draft a quarterback. I think that's going to be super important. You bring in a free agent like a Justin Fields, but even more realistically, I know we don't want to talk about it because it's a weird name and somebody that sort of used this in the past. If Kirk Cousins wants to come here on a 1 year, and the financial requirements are so low due to what he's owed in Atlanta, it could make sense to have him in that quarterback room and have a rookie develop and see if you could play a rookie the last 6 to 7 games of the season. And after understanding this new offense, which is going to be a completely new offense, it's going to be something different, unique, and I think it's going to be better than definitely what we've seen from Hackett and maybe better than things we've seen for years now. you could bring in a rookie and see what you have for the following season. And then you start looking at your options in 26. But I don't think necessarily you have to look at 25 as, play Justin Fields all year and try to make the playoffs. I don't think that's what is important here. What's important here is developing an identity on offense and having a system that a rookie, and I think it's imperative that the Jets draft a quarterback this year in day 2, maybe day 3, and see who they can develop and what they have once the season's over in a future, in a future option at quarterback. That's all it's about. They need to find a quarterback that can be here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The best way to do that is to bring in a rookie. There's nobody right now on the roster that I could say that for. If Jordan Travis could get healthy, then yeah, we'll have a conversation there. I have doubts about that, but it's not about, Tyrod and Jordan Travis, I don't think are the two.
Yeah, no.
The only 2 quarterbacks on the roster, and then they're going to figure it out in 26. I think they're going to try to bring in someone. They could even trade for a quarterback. There's quarterbacks in the league, Connor, that I think they want to bring in and see how they develop throughout the year and how they learn Tanner's new offense, how they could be inputted at some point during the season. But it'll be interesting for sure. I don't have a name per se for you. The free agent market, it's bare. People are talking about Jared Stidham. There's nothing really there.
No, I'm not a Jared Stidham guy at all.
Yeah, I don't want Mac Jones here.
Oh my God.
If you bring in somebody like, let's say you do bring in Cooper Rush, for example, and try to build out that room.
I can live with that.
It's something where with a rookie, you can start seeing what you have, but that's unfortunately the position we're in. But I think it could become a fortunate situation if they learn the offense and they could play the second half of the season and see what they got.
A lot to unpack there, Frankie. I guess where I'm going to start is your remarks you made about the new regime, Aaron Glennon and Darren Muji here. It's not just, about wins and losses. It's about coming in and establishing an identity. And I said that on my show the day they hired Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. I said, guys, please, if the Jets go 5-12 next season, if they go 6-11, don't start the Gerard Mayo, fire Aaron Glenn, Gerard Mayo comps, fire Aaron Glenn after year 1. That's not the case. I think this season goes a lot deeper, like you said, than just the record. It's about coming in and establishing an identity, because this year is unlike the past 2 seasons. This isn't an all-in year. The past 2 years, it was Super Bowl or bust. This is not the case whatsoever. This is the first year for a new regime. You don't have Aaron Rodgers back next season. You're going to look to a bridge option. So, guys, please don't only judge Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji off their first season from just a pure wins and loss standpoint. I think you have to look at the bigger picture. And, Frankie, you've been big on that. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. I couldn't agree with you more. You talk about drafting a quarterback. I'm on board with that 1,000%. I think it's always great to draft a quarterback once every few years, no matter who's on your roster. Just see what you have. Kyle McCord, late day 2, early day 3 is a name I really like. I would love Will Howard in the 4th round. I think 3rd round is a bit of a reach for him. I would love Jalen Milroe as well if he were to fall to the 4th round. So a lot of names to watch at the quarterback position. You mentioned potentially even trading for a quarterback. Frankie, Kyler Murray's name has made his rounds recently in Jets land as potential trade target. Could you see the Jets maybe going that route? Would you be interested if Darren Muji listened and made an offer for Kyler Murray over in Arizona?
Listen, man, that's why you're one of the best. You always have some really unique ideas, man. You're a young goat for a reason. Listen, I like Kyler Murray a lot. I really do. I don't know what it would cost, Connor. That's the key there, is what the cost would be. But if Arizona's ready to get off of Kyler, which I doubt, but they could if they're trying to go in a new direction, man, Kyler Murray would be awesome. I think that's an upside play. That's a quarterback that can come in that is proven that he could play at a top 10 quarterback level.
Former number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And you start doing things in a different way. And Kyler Murray would be interesting. I don't know what the cost would be again, but I'm with that. I think there are options out there, and I think the options stem outside of this free agency market. I think there are quarterbacks right now in the league that if the Jets want to knock on their doors from other teams and look at what the potential is, I think they could figure out a situation where with a rookie, you'll have a system in place that you can look at 26 and actually make a good assessment as to where you want to go with quarterback. But you got to try. So I think that's the key here. They just have to try a few different options here. They can't get stuck on one or the other. If you look at one potential option in, let's say, Justin Fields, which I know a lot of Jet fans are clamoring for Justin. If it doesn't work out, you don't want to be, you don't want to put yourself in a hole for 26. But Kyler Murray doesn't do that. Kyler Murray, if you bring him in, he'll be your quarterback one for
competent.
at least 3-4 years. Yeah, more than competent. I mean, Kyler Murray is one of the best I want to say like dual threat quarterbacks in football.
For sure, he was top 11, top 13 in every main metric for a quarterback this past season. Like, sorry to cut you off there, but he certainly hasn't lived up to the hype as a number 1 overall pick. Let's be real. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he's still, in my opinion, an above average quarterback in the NFL. That's why I think trading for Kyler Murray, he isn't your typical bridge option. He is interesting because he has the potential, Frankie, as crazy as it sounds, especially what we've seen the past few years as Jet fans, he has the potential to, carve himself out a nice role here for 4 or 5 seasons based on what we've seen from him. Like, he isn't a typical bridge option compared to a Gardner Minshew, compared to who's a Taylor Heineke, Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett. He has the potential to have a long-term future if the Jets were able to go out and make a deal for him.
Definitely. And, you look at other quarterbacks, it's unlikely someone like Joe Milton, just because he's in division, would be somebody that the Patriots would trade
too low of a floor, too.
Yeah, low floor, high ceiling. But I think that's what the Jets need to focus on. Can you find a quarterback that has a high enough ceiling that if you input them and they understand Tanner's system and this new way of doing things offensively, which with our new offensive line coach, who was a tight ends coach previously, wasn't assistant offensive line coach, though, you can start playing with different personnel packages. You can start seeing if this quarterback is able to pick things up. If you have a rookie that's learning behind these players, you start optimizing your ability to bring somebody in that could be the answer. Or worst case scenario, let's say, you draft one in 26 too. You put yourself in a position where 25, you try to hit some home runs with the quarterback. And then in 26, if that doesn't work out in 25, where you're drafting in the top 10 and you want to, even if you're not in the top 10, but you're somewhere outside and you want to move up, the 26 class is a lot more stacked with top 10 quarterback options than this class is. So you can put yourself in a position to kind of potentially get your quarterback in 26 if you can't find an option in 25.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000% there. Kyler Murray, we just spoke about. Frankie Vittarini, Connor Long, here with you on NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate all of your support. Any questions for Frankie and I, throw them in the chat. We will be sure to get to those shortly. Kyler Murray, a trade option. That was a name that I thought was quite intriguing. Zach Rosenblatt from The Athletic mentioned him and his 20 quarterbacks. I think he listed 20 names to watch for the job. He put that in his article. Frankie, you spoke a lot about Tanner Angstrand there. You've mentioned how players are going to fit in his system. I know a lot of fans are a little skeptical of Angstrand, but overall, I'm a big fan of his. You look what he did spending past, I think, 5 seasons. It was 5 or 4 seasons with Detroit, really worked his way up their ranks on the offensive coaching staff. Came in Matt Patricia's last season as their head coach, and then Dan Campbell eventually retained him on the offensive staff. 8 years of play calling experience, though none at the NFL level, 7 in college, 1 at the XFL level, plus 2 different stints with the Harbaugh family. I really like the hire of Tanner Angstrand. I think he's a young, innovative offensive mind with a really, really high ceiling here.
Absolutely. West Coast philosophy, likes to run RPOs, uses a lot of wide formations, Connor, uses a lot of pre-snap motion. This is the Ben Johnson way, obviously. Very quarterback-friendly structure, but it is very dependent on rhythm and timing. That's exactly what he wants. A lot of this, what I'm saying, is not Aaron Rodgers, by the way. You starting to pick that up outside of the West Coast philosophy, which Rodgers did technically come from.
It's an Aaron Rodgers. It's the Aaron Rodgers offense. He calls the plays.
Yeah, and it's a lot of wait and see, and when can I get it to my number one option kind of way. Tanner wants to be creative, and he likes to use play action, misdirection. So I think if you can get a quarterback that can potentially be a dual threat or can give you some stuff outside the pocket, things start getting a little bit interesting. But yeah, I do like this Tanner hire a lot. I know a lot of Lions fans. I was saying on Jake's show, I go down rabbit holes on Reddit every once in a while. I would suggest you stay far away from Reddit. Don't go on there. You're too young for Reddit. But Redditors, if that's what they're called, in Detroit and Lions fans, they hated the fact that they ended up with John Morton and not Tanner Engstrand. So that's what this is about, and that's the biggest variable I think in this whole thing as to what happens at quarterback is who will understand and who will be able to run Tanner's system, who will get a shot to run. And I think there'll be a few different options for him. He'll play out who he wants and see what happens, and then we'll move forward accordingly, I think.
Frankie, and one more bridge option name I wanted to get into. He would be another trade target for the Jets, and he's someone who, again, like similar to Kyler Murray, might not be just your typical bridge quarterback. Might have somewhat of a future third round pick by the Tennessee Titans in 2022. Just finished the 2024 season with the Packers. That's Malik Willis. We know where his floor is, Frankie. 2 up and down seasons with the Titans. Didn't really show much. Only got 3 starts. Then he was traded last offseason for a 7th round pick to the Packers, where I thought he did a great job backing up Jordan Love. He went 2-0 as a starter, appeared in 7 games, completed 74% of his pass, 550 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 84 yards on the ground, a rushing touchdown, and only 8 scramble attempts. I mean, the guy's 25 years old. He has a lot of upside. It can't hurt to potentially try to throw a day 3 pick Green Bay's way and see what you could get out of a guy like Malik Willis. He could be really, really intriguing for the Jets.
Yeah, interesting option. Interesting. I think he fits in a way. That Tanner Engstrand kind of system, I think he does fit. He likes to run RPOs, Malik Willis. The thing you have to realize, and I think that we have to consider is it worth a day 3 pick, Malik Willis, or is it worth a day 3 pick this year or whenever next year to invest in a quarterback that could learn Tanner Engstrand? It depends who. It depends who. There's some quarterbacks I like this year that I think in day 3. I mean, you have guys like we were speaking about Will Howard. I think he'll end up being a day 2, by the way, Connor, when it's all said and done. Yeah. You have Curtis Rourke at Indiana, who's interesting. Dylan Gabriel, if Milroe falls. I like all those, maybe not Rourke, but I like a lot of the options in this quarterback class, specifically as your day 3 options, which I didn't like last year. So to contrast to last year's draft, I thought the day 3 quarterback pool was not good, but I thought it was super top heavy. You had 4 or 5 really good prospects, then it sort of fell off a cliff. This year, it seems like you have one really good option in Cam Ward, and then you have a bunch of
mid options.
Yeah, exactly. This is your kind of terminology. I can't use mid anymore. I'm too old for that. But yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think you can find a few diamonds in the rough here if you look later on. There's then systems are opening up too in college football this past year specifically. A lot more teams are running this sort of air raid and RPO system, and every year you see it more and more in college ball. So the transition to an NFL game that isn't as physical and a little bit more open could be a little bit easier for a young quarterback to kind of come in. And if they're able to learn, then that's the biggest thing. How much time are they putting in to learn the system? How much do they want it? And I think if you find somebody that shows you that, you might have something.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate all your support. Connor Long, Frankie Vitariti here with you on NY Flight Jets talking Jets quarterback options for the 2025 season. Any questions, throw them in the chat. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Smash the like button. Appreciate all of your support. Completely free. Helps us grow significantly here on the program. If you want to call into the show, pin comment at the top of the chat. We'll start getting into your questions. Our guy David D. Frankie, who's a Lions fan. We have 2 Lions fans here on the show, and David is a channel member. He's a Lions fan, big fan of yours. He was raving you up in Jake's chat.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate.
He had some very kind words.
He's one of very few that likes me in Jake's chats, but we're not going to get there.
David says Mac Jones is somewhat better version of Tim Boyle. Very good leadership and an asset in the QB room, but can't play the quarterback position efficiently. Excuse me. Look, Frankie, I would take so many names over Mac Jones. I almost put him in the tier when you look at free agent names. This might be a bit of a reach, but I hate Mac Jones so much. Like, I'd put him in the tier of like a Sam Ellinger and an Easton Stick in free agency among the names for the Jets to covet. I would take anyone. Mason Rudolph. Give me him over Mac Jones. I'm thinking other free agents. Gardner Minshew, give me him. I'll trade for Tanner McKee before I look at Mac Jones. All these names. Hell, give me Josh Dobbs before I get my hands on Mac Jones here. I want nothing to do with Mac Jones, former division rival. was talking a lot of crap during the Jaguars game. I'm not a big fan of his on-field personality. I just don't think he is a good quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. I basically agree with everything you're saying. I think the thing with Mac Jones that's the most interesting thing here is how he's developed, what he knows, and how he's been able to turn himself into a pro in this league. And I don't think he's gotten there yet. So I think if there's any upside with Mac Jones, which I don't think there is, but if there is a level of upside you want to look, like if you're in the pro Mac Jones camp, if you want to look at something, he never learned how to play quarterback. He never had a system. He never had a rhythm to his game. If you want to try that, I would steer away. But a lot of these backup quarterback, like even the kid in Chicago, Tyson Benjamin, whatever his name is.
Tyson Bagent, yes.
Tyson Bagent. Guys like that, they've never had the opportunity to develop within a system. If you give somebody the keys, or you at some point, you don't know what you have necessarily. And I think sitting and learning in a new system and having some time could yield something effective as a quarterback. And it's not about, I think a lot of times we get it a little bit twisted about every quarterback needs to be some like Pro Bowl caliber starting quarterback. You got to get the quarterback room competitive. Tyson Benjamin, I'm not talking as a starter, but it brings up a level to your quarterback room that it makes it competitive. Guys in and out on a daily are competing. And when rookies come in, they feel that. Josh McCown always speaks about that, how important a competitive quarterback room is, which they developed in Minnesota. And look what that did to Sam Darnold. You need to develop a quarterback room. Then you can worry about when and how you're going to plug in a quarterback or bring in a young quarterback and how they develop. That is the most important part to this. They need a new quarterback room that is competitive. And that's, to me, the most important thing we can do right now with this new regime.
For sure. Our guy, you're in the building, lists two of the Las Vegas Raiders quarterbacks, probably potentially two who might not be there next season, quite frankly, might not even be there in a month or so. Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew? I think this is a great question here because Minshew, obviously a pending free agent. He's kind of on the older side, 29 years old, but has experience being a bridge guy, has experience as a starter in this league. On the flip side, I think there's still somewhat of an unknown with Aiden O'Connell. If you want to comp to this year's draft class, kind of reminds me of Kyle McCord when he came out. Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is a tough one. Frankie, I'm leaning Gardner Minshew here if you're going to go for a legit bridge option. I know you're big on the future, so I know
we're down bad. We're going Aiden O'Connell. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Listen, Aiden O'Connell's under his rookie deal, so all signs point to he's going to stay in Vegas probably unless you trade for him. I like Aiden O'Connell. I do. I don't like him as a long-term answer at quarterback, but I think he's somebody that he comes in, he's a backup, and he's going to compete to start. I think Aiden O'Connell looked good last year, and he knows how to use his tight ends. I also used to really I wanted us to bring in Gardner Minshew a few years ago. When that Zach thing happened, when he was going to start after Rodgers went down, I thought Gardner should have been on this team as our backup over Zach Wilson. I thought that was clear and cut, and that would have been the move. And he almost made the playoffs that year with the Colts. So, listen, if I had to pick, I think Gardner's been around a little bit. The book's sort of out. I think there's more unknowns with Aiden if I had to pick one or the other. But if you're looking at the market, obviously Minshew would be available. So if I had to pick there.
I completely understand where you want to go because
they're both good backup options though. Like they're good options if you're gonna go in and say, hey, we're gonna have a room with Tyrod Taylor, draft somebody and have Gardner there.
Then where does Jordan Travis fall? Like that's the big question for me. I don't think you have.
Knows.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything in Jordan Travis. I love him. I hope he does something great. I hope he's able to come back from this injury and he's the Jets franchise quarterback. But I think the chances of that are very slim. I think it's a slim chance that he even. It's crazy to say it, but he's lucky he's able to walk. I think there's a slim chance that he takes an NFL snap. I don't think you could really expect anything out of Jordan Travis. Maybe a team, would you potentially trade Jordan Travis? Like, is there any team that would be interested in trading for him? I said Hendon Hooker straight up for Jordan Travis to Detroit. Like, I would do that all day. What is Jordan Travis's future with the Jets, Frankie?
Listen, Connor, he's a 5th-round pick, right? And now with
Yes.
all these other red flags, and he already had him coming into the draft with these, recurring injuries or this recurring situation with his leg, his value is virtually non-existent. And I hate saying it like that, but it's true. You're not going to get Hendon Hooker value might be a 4th-round pick. Jordan Travis was a
high? I mean, he's
I
a
mean, if
3rd-round pick. You haven't seen anything out of him.
I'm saying for Hendon Hooker, if you wanted to trade for Hendon Hooker,
I think
probably
5th
a
round,
4th.
maybe 5th or
5th,
4th.
okay.
Yeah.
I think then Jordan, you're talking like a 7th
7th.
rounder, if that, because he was a
Wow.
5th, and then now you don't even know if he's able to play. So I think the Jordan Travis thing is just something we should just store and just hope that he can get healthy and see how he competes. And that's the big thing. They have to go in and have an actual camp. And it's not like when Zach came here that it automatically was his job when he was drafted, which it shouldn't have been. Nobody should just have this job. I think that's whoever can run Tanner's offense the most effectively, and whoever is becoming a leader and guys are believing in, that's the quarterback you give the keys to start the year. You do what you can to build a quarterback room, and then you see who is the best option out of that room, and you can go a few different directions. Now, listen, nothing's going to be better on paper or in a vacuum than Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, there's not going to be an option you can even compare. We're talking about, Jordan Travis and Tyson Benjamin and Mariota and freaking
Andy Dalton,
Jameis Winston. I mean, it's ridiculous, right, to compare to Aaron Rodgers. That's not the point, though. The point is, how do we develop a quarterback room where everybody's on board with this new offensive coordinator? And that's what he is. It is the most imperative thing for us to stand behind Tanner Engstrand and have him instill an offense that these quarterbacks fight and compete to try to represent on opening night. That's what it's got to be. It's got to be who is the best of the bunch, and then you can start plugging in and playing later on or wherever you find it, necessary. But that's the goal for the Jets quarterback. It's who's the best at running this new offense.
For sure. Going back to our Lions fan here, David D. I think the Jets are going to look for a number 2 tight end, like what Brock Bowers provides the Lions, versatile offensive piece, including as a lead blocker plus special teams contribution. Look, Frankie, I don't know your thoughts here on Brock Wright. Really small sample size, 26 years old. I think he might have had less than 100 yards last year. Really didn't get to see much of him with that tight end room really clogged over there in Detroit. He's a name to look out for. A name I'm hearing a lot who's really cheap because they're going to need a lot of tight end depth is Mo Ali Cox, the former Colts tight end. He's a free agent.
He won me a few fantasy weeks back.
Oh, really?
Back a few years ago. I had Mo. I had Mo AC for a little bit. Yeah.
Nice. So, yeah, he's a name that's been tossed around. The Jets are going to need a lot of tight ends for next season because Conklin, it's an unknown if he's going to return. I think Ruckert should probably be a pre-June 1 cut. I think that's the Jets' best option with him. I really don't think you have anything with him. Kenny Yeboah, another pending free agent. Maybe he comes back for $3 or $4 million next season. And then Zach Kuntz, I truly don't think is an NFL caliber player.
Yeah, I'll say this. If there's a draft you want to look at where you could find a tight end, forget about tight end 2, a tight end 1.
Harold Fannin, all these guys.
You have Tyler Warren, you have Colston Loveland, who's very, very good.
Michigan kid.
Plays slot 2 receiver. Not as much of a prototypical tight end because he does play a lot of slot receiver. He plays that inline flanker role. Fannin, like you just said, Gunnar Helm is another interesting name.
Texas.
You want a real tight end, Gunnar Helm. And then I was talking about on Jake's show. I like Jason Taylor's son, man. I like Mason Taylor at LSU. Very interesting piece to what they were trying to do there. Didn't get as many looks due to what LSU does and how widespread their offense is. So it doesn't really give enough love to the tight end, but super athletic. You have the kid out of Miami too, Arroyo. There's literally 7 to 8 tight ends that you can really slot as being at least a tight end 2, if not a tight end 1. And the top of the top, man, like Tyler Warren, it might be a little early drafting him at 7, but if you want to move back a few picks, he's very interesting. I mean, he carried that Penn State offense. So I love the tight end group this year, and I don't think necessarily need to trade for one. But again, the thing that's interesting is, and it's all about value play, right? If the draft is super heavy with tight ends and a team's trying to get off a tight end on their roster, that might lower the value for you to trade for a backup tight end. So I think this year the Jets can really do a lot of damage when it comes to tight ends. Tanner, coming from the Detroit system, our offensive line coach was a tight ends coach. They should be able to nail tight end. I'd bring in a few. Again, I'd bring in one off free agency or via trade market, and I would draft one of these kids.
Frankie, now I'm going to ask you a draft question there. Tyler Warren, a name you mentioned out of Penn State. Love his size. I think he could be a real weapon for whatever team gets him. Do you think Tyler Warren at pick 7, excuse me. I'm so used to saying pick 10 from last year with all the Brock Bowers talk, all that.
Tyler Don't get Warren, PTSD on Brock Bowers, okay? Don't do it.
Yep.
Stay far away.
Tyler Warren at pick 7, Frankie. Is it rich or is it not?
I've been struggling with this one, man. I'm in the beginning, I'm like, I'm good. I'm very good on this, meaning I'm not totally on board with it. Yeah. But you know what? I'm more open to it. I think rich. I do. I'm more in the camp of, I like players that are not necessarily scheme dependent offensively, to start because of how new our system is. Get someone that can be great at their position outside of scheme. And the more I looked at Tyler Warren, I switched my stance. Initially, I thought, he's going to be a scheme-dependent player, and he may be coming into a scheme that needs some time to kind of figure things out. But the more I look at Tyler Warren, I don't think he's as scheme-dependent as I initially thought. I think he can come in and he can give you a tremendous amount of value at a premium position these days. You look at the top teams, too. A lot of them have really quality tight ends. So I think it's something that the Jets should consider. It would be a little bit of an overpay, I think, in terms of drafting a tight end 7th. But I think Tyler Warren's proven through the way he plays and how hard he plays and his ability to just catch everything in his radius. He's not the quickest, I would say, or he's not the most agile tight end. So that's where you lose me if you're comparing him to Bowers. I think Bowers sort of, trumps him when it comes to just athleticism in in a route tree. But Tyler Warren is a man. And I think he's someone that if we drafted him, I wouldn't be mad at it. Again, I wouldn't be mad at really any offensive player BPA wise that they feel like makes sense. I think the offense has to be the priority when it comes to drafting this year. We have Steve Wilks and Aaron Glenn that are going to head the defense. We don't need to give the defense too much ammo because they can figure it out outside of talent, and they have Jermaine coming back. We have defensive guys. I hope Jamian Sherwood gets re-signed. So I think offense needs to be a priority. I would draft heavy offensively this year, and then see how Tanner can utilize these pieces.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We greatly appreciate all your support here on the show. Completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Frankie Vittarini, Connor Long, talking all things New York Jets here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Keep the questions coming. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. If you want to call into the show, click the pinned comment at the top of the chat. A few callers to get to. Let's go out to someone. Frankie, I don't know if I didn't catch the back end of Jake's show, so I don't know if you spoke to him today, but a regular on the Jake Asman show, our guy Chris G is up first here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Chris is a big Rodgers fan, Frankie, so we're gonna have to.
Is he wearing a Rodgers? Where's your Rodgers jersey? You wearing one?
Dude, this is Elijah Moore jersey. That's how you know I'm an OG, man.
Come on. God. What are you doing, man?
But yeah, before we get into Rodgers, let's just look at the quarterback environment. The choices we have right now. The number one guy for me is Justin Fields, but I would totally give up the 7th pick for Kyler Murray. What do you guys think? Who are you guys' number one choices?
Frankie, Kyler Murray, 7th overall pick. Is that a little much?
I don't think so at all. No way, man. Man,
wow.
If you're listen, a quarterback is a premium position, man. If you can tell
you need a franchise quarterback to win in this league.
Yeah, listen, who would you rather have? Tyler Warren, Ted McMillan, Mason Graham. I like Will Campbell, or Kyler Murray. You got to get the quarterback. You got to get the upside. It's a no-brainer. And I would give up more than just a 7th pick for Kyler Murray. Wow. Kyler Murray can play at a top 10 quarterback level, or at least top 15. He's young. He's a dual threat. He can run the RPO. Man, Kyler Murray would be awesome if you could get him for this. I don't think Arizona's not giving you Kyler Murray for the 7th pick, though. It's going to be more. It's going to take a little more than that. But
a first and a third.
I think it could be more. Kyler Murray's a franchise quarterback, number one pick. Kyler Murray is a boss. He might not be perfect. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's not he's not middle of the pack quarterbacks. And when Kyler Murray plays, he can put up 300 plus passing yards and run for 70 to 80 yards a game. So Kyler Murray. I don't know if he's going to be available, but if the 7th pick, if a 1 and a 2, I would give up a 1 and multiple 2s for Kyler Murray. I wouldn't even think about it, to be honest.
Chris, we have you here to talk about Aaron Rodgers. You've been very
Imagine
vocal.
Kyler Murray throwing a Garrett Wilson, boys. That'd
That
be
would
nice,
be
wouldn't
That'd
it?
be awesome.
Imagine
to
running
see.
the read option, Kyler Murray and Breece Hall, so Breece has a quarterback that can run the read option with him and open things up a little bit.
RPO bubble to Malachi Corley on the screen, like the way
Absolutely,
the
man. It's
Jameis,
a no-brainer.
Jameson Williams. Like, I think that could be really fun. But Chris, we have you here. You want to talk Aaron Rodgers, so fire away. Why did you want Aaron Rodgers back? Then Frankie and I will state our points.
So first off, if we stay at 7, I want them to take McMillan because we need wide receiver now. And one of my main points why we should have kept Rodgers is that it created so many unnecessary holes. Now we have a huge hole at quarterback we have to fill, and we have another hole at receiver now because there's no Devontae. And I think that since we're trying to in my eyes, the goal next year should have been to make the playoffs, to maximize all the talent we have on this team already. And making the playoffs, even if it's a wild card, not going all in, is extremely valuable because it gives us something to build off of. And I felt like Rodgers gave us the best chance to do that. And now we have to talk about all these crazy quarterback names like Sam Howell and Malik Willis when we could have had a staple in Aaron Rodgers who would have given us 9 wins and a wild card berth potentially.
Frankie, fire away.
The thing is, man, it's a process, right? Like 9 wins. Who knows if it's going to be 9 wins? I mean, if you look at this year, the 5 wins we had, 4 of them were against backup quarterbacks on really crappy teams outside of the Tyler Huntley and the Dolphins. You might not consider that, but he beat Mac Jones, Will Levis, and Jacoby Brissett. And I just don't think he would be conducive to a quarterback room that is going to do things in a new way. We have to think about this outside of a win now 1-year window. Now, if you were to tell me you can guarantee us make the playoffs with Aaron back, I would say, okay, I'd be down. I don't know if that's the reality. I didn't see one person on offense this year that got better. I didn't. And I'm worried about his health. I'm worried more than anything about Rodgers being able to stay healthy for a full year. I think a few more big hits. He's turning 42 next December. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the grind again, man. I think it took a lot out of him the last couple years. In a perfect world, what you're saying makes sense, Chris. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's why I was a little 50-50 on it. But I think it's time to kind of like clear the deck, figure out the quarterback room, start looking at options. And I think they have some options in mind that we're not even thinking of. I was telling Jake, don't be surprised.
I heard you say that.
Don't be surprised if week 1 our starter is somebody that if we were to name 10 different quarterbacks that we're projecting to start aren't even starting next year.
Gosh,
and
could you imagine that?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Could you imagine that? Kenny Pickett? Trading for Kenny Pickett?
But let me tell you something. Do you know what a strong quarterback room does? Look what Minnesota had. And look at Sam Darnold this year. When, what's his name, McCarthy went down and he wasn't starting. Did anyone think Sam Darnold was going to have a year like he had last year? Nobody thought that. They thought, oh, I was slated Minnesota to win, 6 games, 7 games. That quarterback room's strong. If you can get an asset at quarterback, now Sam was a 3rd pick, but if you're able to find somebody in this draft or find somebody via the trade market that can learn Tanner's offense and you see some flashes towards the second half of the season or even earlier than that in a perfect world, it's a new day and a new way of doing offense. I don't think Aaron was going to run this offense. If it was a veteran OC that wanted Aaron, it makes sense. It's a new system. Tanner's young. You don't want to throw in a bull in a china shop like Rodgers. He's going to be overtaking play calls by week 3 in that system. And what's it going to do to Tanner? You got to develop the offensive coordinator. You just do. Who knows where he ends up, but he's the most important piece, I think, to this puzzle. The defense will be fine. The offense, I have a lot of doubts on. So we got to make sure the system is developing. And I don't know if Aaron was ready to do that.
Yeah,
that's
Chris,
the biggest thing.
Yeah, Chris, this is what I'm going to have to say, Chris and Frankie. This is where I am with Aaron Rodgers. And no disrespect to anyone who's saying you get rid of Aaron Rodgers, it's a tank year. That is certainly 1000% not the case. Because I know, Chris, you said the goal was to make the playoffs, and now the chances are significantly less. I wouldn't even go that far to say significant. They're certainly less because I thought Aaron Rodgers gave them the best chance to win. However, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, sustained success was a huge talking point during the introductory press conference. And you don't establish sustained success, in my opinion, by paying who I think is a bottom 10 quarterback in this league, who is in his 40s, $63 million in 2026. And maybe you go 9-8 and get into the wild card. That's a maybe, though. That's still not a sure thing. You just won 5 games with the guy. Again, there were a lot more pieces to the puzzle than that. But you're coming off a season where you won 5 games with this guy, and it's automatically, oh my God, you're going to automatically go to the playoffs with him for the first time in what would be 15 years next year. And then boom, go 9-8 one season, pay him $63 million. I really don't think it's worth that. Frankie, I agree 1000%. You have to adapt to a more modern day offensive scheme. The circumstance I wanted them back with is if he was willing to adapt to a modern day offensive scheme, get rid of the McAfee and all that on off-field crap, which, again, I said this when they got rid of him. You could do that, go on McAfee, talk about Brick Johnson and all that if you were a top 5 quarterback. If the Jets were 10-7, 11-6, and Aaron Rodgers was talking about, I don't care, things are great. But when you're performing like a bottom 10 quarterback and you're causing off-field issues, I think that is also a massive problem as well. So, Chris, my question, because you wanted Aaron Rodgers back, correct?
Yeah.
On his current contract, current everything. My question to you is, let's be clear, my words have been misconstrued several times. I am not comparing Aaron Rodgers to this player across his entire career. I think this is a fair comparison for next season. Chris, would you pay Geno Smith $63 million in 2026 to be your starting quarterback next year?
No, I would not. But
Okay.
I think that what are like the cap hit is like cutting him. So what is that? Isn't that like just as
It's
bad?
$49 million, but Frankie, it's going to be a post June 1 designation, right? So it's going to be 35 in 26-14 next year, right?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I
think they might.
I thought that's what Samini and all of them were saying. I want it to be pre-June 1, eat it all next year.
That's what I think they're gonna do. I think they're gonna. I think they might pre-June 1 it and just eat it all next year and just start a clean slate in 26. And I think honestly, if they're not gonna go crazy in free agency, and they're gonna just slow and steady it. I could see it being pre-June 1. I could. I think he's going to get cut sooner rather than later. The designation will depend on a few things, but regardless, at this point, they have to look at. You got to look at the draft, man. Like they have to, and the thing here is, I'm not a Jackson Dart fan, to be honest, and
not in the first round, certainly.
Yeah, I'm not a Shedeur Sanders fan really either, to be honest with you guys. I love Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward has the highest ceiling out of these quarterbacks, but I don't think Cam Ward has a ceiling like Drake May did last year, for example. So Cam Ward probably falls within the 4th or 5th best quarterback if you put him in last year's draft. But he's the only one I could see turning into a gamer, someone that is a Russell Wilson like kind of quarterback that could get to that next level and really in a good offense and system with a good old line could make plays. And he could. If things are good around him, Cam Ward will be good. And I like some of the day 2 or day 3 guys, but there's going to be a few of those guys that are going to jump into the first round, I think. So they just have to draft a kid, though. And if they need to move back in the first round or move into the first round to get one of these kids, they need to consider that, because I love Will Howard. I think I can't say it enough. And I don't think Will Howard's necessarily going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that because it's kind of crazy talk, but he makes your quarterback room better. He's a winner. He's going to compete. He's going to learn a system. You can plug and play that kid in, learning Tanner's system, and he does a lot of what Tanner does. He does a lot of that RPO. He does a lot of those quick rhythm throws. He's not waiting for Devontae Adams to get open finally so he could throw his 500 touchdown. That's not what he's going to do. So,
yeah,
look,
no dig on Rodgers, but I had to give you one, Chris. All right,
Chris, that was my question. Like, if you're not going to if you wouldn't pay Geno Smith $63 million in 2026 to be your quarterback, I don't think you should pay Aaron Rodgers that in 2026 to be your quarterback.
I think
that's fair.
I think saying Rodgers is a bottom 10 quarterback is a bit of a stretch.
Why? Watch. Okay, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're
Here's
good.
the two things. You can look at the two different variables. I'm a big numbers guy. I know a lot of people are big on, looking at the raw film. He was bottom 10 in basically every metric except yards and touchdowns. The whole thing, Frankie, I'm sure you get this on Twitter all the time on all the podcasts, is, oh my God, he threw 28 touchdowns. So much better compared to what we had the past few seasons with Mike White and Sam Darnold. Well, guys, he ranked second in passing attempts. He threw the ball 548 times. You're expected to throw over 25 touchdowns if you audible out of run plays time in and time out at the line of scrimmage so you can play buddy ball and feed the ball to Devontae Adams. You're expected to do that. As yards per attempt was almost dead last. Accuracy was absolutely awful this past season. So he was a bottom 10 quarterback in every metric. And Chris, I think a lot of people who were in the same boat as you, I'm not saying you think this way, but a lot of people who were in the same boat as you automatically, like I said to Frankie before the show, automatically forget about the first 12 weeks of the season, and they just throw that out the window. The whole thing, I know they're going to say he wasn't healthy.
He got
He
twisted
wasn't
into a
healthy.
pretzel in London, Connor. He got twisted
Okay, in
into a
London,
pretzel.
that's one game. He was injured. He was injured in Denver. I'll give him that. He was injured in London. I'll give you that for
They
sure.
said the hamstring injury he suffered was like the most severe possible, and he played through it the entire season. With
Do
better
you know what I
coaching,
think, guys? Do you know what I think? I think the reality is somewhere in the middle of what you're both saying. I think
Okay.
Rodgers last year was an average quarterback.
To below average. Average to
I think-
below average.
I think he was middle of the pack. I think he was 14 to 16. He had flashes where he could look like he could creep into that top 10 range. Then he had flashes
that.
or low lights where he was in like a bottom 5 range. I think he gave you that. But consider this too. He put the offense in all retrospects together. Like he wanted Lazard there. He came there because Lazard was there. Hackett was there. You had Brees, Garrett Wilson. They brought in Adams. Conklin's an average tight end. The O-line, as bad as people think it was, it's because your quarterback's holding on the ball forever. The O-line was average to a little bit above average, especially when it comes to pass blocking. Maybe not run block, a little bit below because they're lean. But he didn't do anything that I'm like, it's a sure thing that you have to bring him back. I don't think he was bottom 10 like Connor's saying, although statistically it makes sense. But I don't think he was what Brady was on his last limb in Tampa. And I think a lot of times we're confusing Tom Brady and what he did and who he was and what Aaron Rodgers is and what he's done. It's apples and oranges. In my opinion, it's a guy who had one Super Bowl, who went 8 and 9 his last year in Green Bay, who went through the ringer.
Who hasn't been healthy since 2021. I mean, Brady, let's call it how it is.
We're not. It wasn't the win. Now it was a little bit of a facade. It just was. We kind of got overly excited as fans. I understand in a vacuum. I was saying this on Jake's show. In a vacuum, you want Rodgers because of what he can do when he's cooking. When Rodgers is going, he's as good as we've seen. And in a lot of ways, he is. He can look like a top 10 quarterback. The age, the energy, the consistency, the inability to adapt in a game to a new way of doing things is detrimental to his ability at 41 to on to 42 being able to succeed in the NFL today. He's not a pocket passer necessarily like a Jared
Goff for perfect example.
He needs to move outside the pocket. He needs to get the play action going if need be. He needs to get his juices going. If at his age, it's just starting to get stale. He doesn't look like Aaron. He's still very good, but when he is good, he's very good. But the energy's not there. I'm telling people that I would. Yeah.
The Jets weren't supposed to need Aaron to be a top 5 quarterback. We were supposed to have a good defense and it collapsed this year.
1,000%.
We were supposed to have a good kicking game and it collapsed. And we weren't able to run the ball because that's all coaching. I don't think it's all the emphasis all on Rodgers audibling out of run plays, as we say.
Certainly played a factor there, Chris. Frankie, where are you?
We had Brees Hall and Braylon Allen. How was I sitting at home knowing to run the ball outside to Brees and inside to Braylon?
Chief Carter's not a good coach. The coaching was terrible, but Aaron Rodgers audibled out of so many run plays, especially in the red zone.
I'll tell you guys this: if you look at Brees struggles with vision at times. I think when he gets the ball, he's a little too fast to where he wants to go. You saw, and if you want an example, look at Saquon in the Super Bowl. When you're a little too fast to where you want to go, you don't patiently run through and set up your own lanes. I don't think Brees and Saquon doesn't usually do that. So I'm just giving you an example of some recent, but Brees lacks a little bit of vision, and Brees needs more space to cook. And I don't think that giving him as many, early, carries like we did, trying to think if we could establish a run, was going to really be conducive to that offense kind of moving. And we got away from it quick. So I think when Aaron saw, carry 3 or 4, go for a yard or, 2.5, he's like, oh, screw this. I got to get it moving. So I don't think Brees really matched well. My issue with Aaron in the run game was we didn't really put an emphasis on getting Braylon more involved when we saw what he was able to do. And then it wasn't creative. There was nothing that I saw on the running front, with our motions and with our gap schemes that
Coaching.
but Aaron's been around, man. Like Aaron had Aaron Joneses in his careers and guys that like got moving. And I don't feel like he put enough time to kind of set up that scheme for Brees. It was his offense, him and Nate Hackett. It was their way. I'm telling you, like, as much as, Aaron's as much of the OC last year as anybody. He's probably the number one guy that's like creating and calling the plays. This guy, he could be a coach tomorrow, Aaron Rodgers, if he wanted to. That's how knowledgeable he is in the game. So they were just going in a new direction. In a vacuum, he's our best option. Of course, in a vacuum. If you're playing a video game, and you had this roster, and you're like, who am I going to put in? You're going to put in Aaron Rodgers. You're not even going to think about it. They're going in a new direction. They have a new OC, a new system. They have a new way. They want to clear this stench of what's happened. Teams, we had targets on our back the last couple of years too. Teams couldn't wait to play Aaron Rodgers and knock his head off. They don't like him a lot of the league. They think he's arrogant. You're getting rid of all that. Let's rebuild this.
The headaches.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, and I'm not even talking about the outside stuff with him.
The baggage. There's overall baggage.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. They that's why they hired Glenn. I mean, it's not a coincidence. The first thing he said was, I'm going to tell you right now with Aaron, we're going to look at every option. Aaron, we don't know if he's going to be here or not. He basically said, we're going to look at our roster and basically audit this entire roster and see what makes sense for us. So, you can't blame them for doing that. I understand fans that are telling themselves, what the hell's wrong with us? We could have, taken another bite at the apple, but they were just ready to move on. I don't think these coaches and GMs, they don't have enough time to. These coaches want to get their things in place quick because they might only have 3 or 4 years. I know people are saying, well, doesn't Aaron give you a better opportunity your first year? They're looking at a first year as a try out developmental year for their system and figure things out quick so they can really hit the ground running in a second, third, fourth year. And if things go really well, they could do it in their first year. That's really the logic there.
Yeah,
Chris, I appreciate you. I appreciate you hopping on. You got any final thoughts here before we let you go?
Yeah, so listen, I can get behind, them cutting Rodgers if they bring in, say, for example, they have Tyrod and Fields as the QB room and we're competing. But it begins to be a problem if, God forbid, they start to say they're punting on next year or they bring in a guy like Kenny Pickett. I'd be livid. We could have had Aaron Rodgers and we chose Kenny Pickett. I mean, my optimism stemmed from the fact that another year off the Achilles injury, another year removed, Rodgers could have been better with obviously much better coaching and a run game coach who's not an idiot. So, that's what my thought process was for bringing him back. And honestly, the cap didn't matter that much to me because we've seen teams do good, even when they had a lot of dead cap money they had to pay. So that's all I got for you guys. Listen, this is a new era, no matter what our opinion is. Let's go Jets.
Chris G,
Chris.
appreciate
Get
you
'em,
checking
baby.
in. As always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, call into the show, pin comment in the chat, keep your questions going. I'll be sure to get to those. Frankie, appreciate you hopping on. First time on the show. Hopefully we're able to do this again. Appreciate your time as always. Super fun. The final question, though, I asked every single guest I have on the program. For dinner guests. Everyone in the world, dead or alive. Frankie, who are you taking? It could be sports, it could be family, anyone, dead or alive in the world.
You know what, man? I'm gonna stick with my name, Frank. I love Frank Sinatra, man.
Okay.
I
There
would
we go.
love to get a nice Italian dinner with Frank Sinatra, pull back some whiskeys. Don't drink, by the way. It's not good for you. Don't get into drinking or smoking anything, okay? I'm gonna watch out for you, by the way. I'm gonna have tabs on your Connor, so don't be stupid because you have a long career in this industry. And if I didn't do that stuff, I might have been a little bit sooner in my journey. I might have been, just letting you know. But no, I'm a big Frank Sinatra fan. I love his music, and I just feel like I would just love to hang out with Frank. With Frankie, yes, man. It's my guy. So yeah, it's a good question.
I appreciate you hopping on, Frankie. Like I said, first time on the show. Hopefully not the last. Follow Frankie at Frankie Vitz. It is on Twitter.
Yes,
and
sir.
U Stadium Gangs All Here podcast New York post YouTube channel. You got any final thoughts here before we let you go?
Final thoughts are this: draft a quarterback in this draft. Draft one. That's it. Just draft a freaking quarterback. And you know what?
Yes, sir.
I have guys I don't like. I have guys I really like. I don't care. Draft one. Just do me a favor. Draft one and don't start that quarterback early unless they prove in camp that they can win the job. Don't start a quarterback week one. If they prove they've won the job like Russell Wilson did when the Seahawks drafted him, right? They had Matt Flynn. They signed to a big deal. Russell Wilson came in and kicked everyone's ass in camp. Unless that is proven, do not start a quarterback week one, a rookie, but bring in a rookie quarterback. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Frankie V from U Stadium checking in. Check out his work. New York Post Sports YouTube channel, Gangs All Here podcast with Ryan Sampson and Brian Costello. Follow him on Twitter at Frankie Vitz. Check out his work, U Stadium. Great stuff as always. Frankie is the man. Appreciate you all tuning in 56 minutes into this show here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel, completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Appreciate all your support. Keep the questions coming in. I'll stay on a few minutes longer, try to get to those. Last chat, one of your last opportunities today to get into our membership raffle. Every membership you gives you a ticket into our raffle. Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, Bill Parcells signed photo for you from the merch store. Channel emoji, so keep the questions coming. We'll get to those. Call into the show with the pinned comment in the chat. Let's go back to your calls. Our guy Laysal is on the line. Laysal, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing very well. Glad to see that this whole hoopla with Aaron Rodgers is gonna be done in a couple of days. I just don't understand the hoopla. Like, if it happens, it happens. Like, it is what it. Like, we all knew that something was gonna change. We all knew it. It's like, if anyone didn't want anything to change, we should have just kept Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. We should have kept them. If everyone was like, we don't want anything to change. We want Aaron Rodgers to stay here. Then why did you want Robert Saleh to be fired? Why did you want Joe Douglas to be
again,
fired?
awesome LA, Lissell, sorry to cut you off there, but what I will say, I thought it was a little early to fire Robert Saleh 5 weeks into the season.
No, I did too.
I've stood pat on that for a while now.
Yeah.
I thought if you were going to fire him, you should have just moved on from him the offseason prior and brought in Mike Vrabel, and he could have been your head coach of the team. And Mike Vrabel's the head coach of this team for all 17 games last season, Lissell. I mean, we're talking about a different story. We didn't know the ceiling would be sky high for the New York Jets because a lot of different variables, but coaching was the main difference between 5-12 and 12-5.
Yeah. No, for sure. But I'm gonna say this: like, even if we did get a guy like Mike Vrabel would probably would have done the exact same thing and said to Aaron Rodgers, "Bro, this is my team now. This is my team. So if you don't want to run a new scheme and stuff, well, I'm gonna have to get rid of you. Like, we don't know what's happening behind the scene. We don't know what's happening, but like, we all know that Mike Vrabel was going to do that. He was going to do that whole thing that Aaron Glenn is doing. It's just the fact that Aaron Glenn is doing it is that everyone is getting mad about it, which I don't particularly understand because this type of situation was going to happen no matter what head coach we bring in. And if we did keep Aaron Rodgers, and we brought in a new scheme, I don't know if it, like what Frank V said. It doesn't help a new play caller to have a quarterback that constantly changing your plays.
Agreed. Also, someone who is a first-time offensive coordinator, who's relatively young. I think he's younger than Aaron Rodgers. I know that for sure. Is he? Yeah, 42. Okay, no, I was wrong. He's
like 1 year.
Yeah, like a year older than Aaron Rodgers. First-time offensive coordinator at the NFL level, though. He's innovative. He's coming from the Lions offense, one of, if not the most high-powered offense in the NFL. They're very innovative the way they run an offense, like Frankie V said. A lot of the misdirections, they get the play action going really, really nicely. A lot of RPO plays, and I just don't think Aaron Rodgers fits that mold anymore at 41 years old, soon to be 42.
And because I went on Jake Asman's show and he called me an a-hole. But the thing is, like, I understand you guys' opinions. I understand that you guys don't want us to lose. I don't want to lose. And I don't feel like we're gonna lose. I feel like if anything, with Aaron Rodgers there, with all the baggage that he brings in, no matter if you believe it or not, was going to make the team worse. And that's not a good thing for first time head coach. That's not a good thing. Aaron Glenn wants to make sure that this team has the best thing to succeed. And in his head he's like, I can't do that with Aaron Rodgers. There's a possible chance that we could become the best team with Aaron Rodgers. But there's a big chance that we take a nosedive, and Aaron Rodgers going on Pat McAfee saying that he hates his offense coordinator and he hates the
He
QB
never
coach.
said that though.
Well, no. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that he said that. I'm
You're
just
talking
saying,
about in the future potentially.
yeah, in the future. So like I'm just saying in his head. That's the possibility of what could happen, the worst possible scenario. That's what he feels like could happen. So I can't blame him for being that way. I can't blame him for thinking that way and for him being like, you know what, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, if you want to stay with these type of stuff that's like with what we're doing, and if you're fully into it, you gotta do it this type of way. And if you don't want to do that, well, man, you gotta be gone. We can't keep you here. And yeah, so
Lacelle, appreciate you calling in. As always, great stuff. Yeah, I mean, I 1000% agree. The end of the call, great stuff. My biggest takeaway, though, that I agree with you there is there's no guarantee. Like, getting rid of Aaron Rodgers is not punting on 2025. It's not. Even if you were to roll out Tyrod Taylor, I know the injuries are a massive concern, but he's a 500 quarterback across his career. So can you guys please stop with okay, you move on from Aaron Rodgers, you're automatically punting on 2025? Because that's not true. That's simply not true. So let's stop with that narrative. I appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best, completely free, helps us grow significantly. Last chance to get your questions in. Last chance to call one on the show by using the pinned comment in the chat. A few more questions left here before we wrap. John, the best plan is Sam Darnold. John, Sam Darnold's not coming back to the New York Jets, the place he struggled with most to start his career, and now he revitalizes it. I don't think he's going anywhere, quite frankly. I think he comes back on a franchise tag in Minnesota. That's what I think happens. M. Valette, if it's about building up the Engstrand offense, he's going to want an executor pocket passer with a big/accurate arm. He won't lean towards the mobile quarterback type. Who is that, though, among the names available? Because a lot of the names that I think would fit the Jets mold next season are all mobile names. Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, Malik Willis, Kyler Murray. I don't think there is a top 10 pocket passer in this league who is going to be available for the Jets to pick up and be a bridge option next season. I just don't think that name exists here. M. Valette. David D., our Lions fan, I think the Jets will have interest in Lions UFA wide receiver Tim Patrick if he hits the open market. I believe the Lions want to re-sign him, but so much depends on the cost. Tim Patrick, former Bronco, I'd love him here. Jets need a lot of wide receiver depth, some interesting wide receiver free agents. Patrick's one. Stephon Diggs, what is his value at? Coming off a gruesome injury. Getting up there in age. Keenan Allen's an interesting name. Josh Palmer, the speedster from the Chargers, another name to look out for. I expect the Jets to probably add 2 wide receivers in free agency and draft one. I think they should at least add 2, at least add 3 wide receivers this offseason. With Devontae Adams now most likely gone, you're looking at Garrett Wilson. That's your wide receiver room. Literally, that's your only pass catcher, really, in my opinion, who's at least proven. Because Tyler Conklin, pending free agent. Jeremy Ruckert, I think he should be cut. Kenny Yeboah, pending free agent. Zach Kuntz, I don't think is an NFL caliber player. Malachi Corley, we don't know what we have with him. Xavier Gibson, I don't believe is a rosterable, NFL player. Jets are going to need to add a lot of pass catchers this offseason, whether it's through the draft, free agency, both, or on the trade market. You got to do something. I got Greg Rallo in the building. I want Dart or Howard in the right round. Like, I'd take Jackson Dart in the second round. I wouldn't take him in the first. Howard, I'd take in the fourth round if he's there. I'm not reaching on Howard in the third. I know Frankie would. If you missed our interview with Frankie, go back and rewind. Frankie was a big proponent of bringing in Will Howard next season via the draft. Appreciate you tuning in. Kikuli Jet fan, our guy, channel member of the building. Stop falling about Travis. The dude has not been medically cleared. Don't count on Travis for a thing. Kikuli Jet fan, just echoing what I've said forever now with Jordan Travis. 1,000%. You got to view everything you get from him as a bonus. You can't rely on him for anything. Coming off a gruesome injury. Lucky this guy's able to walk. Hasn't had one practice with the Jets yet. Come on, guys. We can't be relying on a 5th-round pick in Jordan Travis to be the future here for the Jets. I'm sorry. Havmo 63 in the building. Fields, Taylor, Travis would be a fun QB room. In that scenario, I'd probably want Taylor to start. I want to see who wins the job, though. I'd probably root for a training camp battle there. I'd say, ideally, if I had to put those 3 names in order, I want Taylor 1, Fields 2, Travis 3. I think Fields could be certainly fun, and you would see him at some point, a few games throughout the season, because you're not getting 17 straight games out of Tyrod Taylor. I think that would be a very, very fun quarterback room. You bring in the free agent and Justin Fields and the 2 in-house names, and Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Travis. I think Taylor is going to be on the roster no matter what, as a starter or backup next season. Travis is interesting. I don't even think it's a guarantee he makes the roster, depending on if they add 2 more quarterbacks. If they had 2 quarterbacks this offseason, meaning they draft one and they sign one in free agency. Because then are you going to carry 4 quarterbacks, or would you just move on from Travis and say, look, you're not medically cleared. We're going to move on. Really interesting decisions that are coming up for the Jets quarterback position. I appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Going to wrap up here soon. Last chance to get your questions, comments, super chats, memberships in. Last chance to call into the show. If you're just tuning in, go back, rewind. We were joined by Frankie V of U Stadium for the first hour of the show. Great stuff from him. As always, follow him on Twitter at Frankie Vitz. Check out his work, New York Post Sports YouTube channel, Gangs All Here podcast. U Stadium, Frankie V is an absolute legend. First time coming on the show. And he'll certainly be back because he's the best. And you guys seem to like him, which is always great. So I appreciate you guys. We're trying to do the show basically every single night at 8 p.m. Let me know if you guys enjoy it. Join the Discord down below. You get exclusive channel updates, completely free, some daily Jets talk. Please, please, please join the Discord completely free. Great way to support the show. You guys are the best. I appreciate it. As always, we have 43 of you in the Discord. So please, please, please join the Discord if you haven't already. We're really, really trying to grow that community over there. Did we get any other signups today? Doesn't look like it. So please just join the Discord completely free. Some great perks you unlock there by joining the Discord. Also, when we do the pre-recorded interviews that air the day later, for example, Ryan Wilson of CBS, we did that the other day, and Joe Caparoso of Badlands. You guys get the opportunity to ask those guys questions compared to those who not in the Discord don't get an opportunity to find out about those interviews. So join the Discord if you haven't already. I appreciate you. Appreciate you all. You guys are the best. Should be back tomorrow night. More Jets talk. A lot to talk about. This team, as Antoine Staley said, New York Daily News Jets beat reporter was on the show yesterday, never a dull moment with the organization. Well, that truly is right. I'm sure we'll be back tomorrow breaking down the latest in Jetland. I appreciate you guys. As always, that'll do it for me. Connor Long signing off. NY Flight Jets Talk. JTS. Jets, Jets, Jets.